welcome. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Jessin Farrell. I'm the Director of the Office of Sustainability and Environment. And we are so thrilled to see so many of you today, to see members of the Green New Deal Oversight Board in particular. And I'm so delighted to have our speakers here today, including Councilmember Tammy Morales, Political Director of IBEW Local 46, Nicole Grant, Executive Director of Climate Solutions, Greg Small, and of course, our very own Mayor Bruce Harrell, who will be speaking after me. So I just want to set the stage. Of course, we know that the climate crisis is upon us, whether it is winter flood warnings in our part of the world, or droughts, or heat and smoke. And we know that we not only need to be reducing our impacts of climate pollution, but now actually preparing our communities to face the worst of our effects. And so our office is working across the city with other departments like City Light. We're glad that our partner departments are here as well, OED, to reduce the impacts of climate pollution and prepare our communities. And as we're doing this, we're working to focus our investments on those communities that are facing the impacts of climate first and worst, particularly Black, Indigenous, people of color in our communities, low-income people in our communities. And our challenge right now is not what do we do, but how quickly and how fast can we go to scale our work. And so we are so thrilled in Washington State that we've been able to partner with our state through investments through the Climate Commitment Act to increase our investments, to speed up our investments, and make sure that everyone in our community is getting the benefits of these wonderful things. So you're going to hear today from all of our speakers about the benefits of the CCA, but I do want to highlight one example that we are working on through our city's Clean Heat program. This is a program that helps residents get off dirty, expensive oil heat and be able to use clean, efficient heat pumps. We have a $3.2 million grant from the Climate Commitment Act that is allowing us to expand this work so that middle-class residents, low-income residents in our community are able to have less expensive heating bills, safe, clean air in their homes in the case of a smoke event. And so over the next few months, we're going to be seeing more heat pumps in more people's homes because of this partnership with the state. And this is just one of many effective local programs that CCA is funding. And I do want to highlight, though, that the CCA is at risk. Initiative 2117 on your ballot this election will repeal the Climate Commitment Act, along with the funding that it provides for important programs like getting clean heat pumps into your houses, that it provides Seattle and other cities and counties across the state to combat the climate crisis. So Seattle is committed to ensuring a just and fair transition off of fossil fuels, and CCA funding is making this shift possible. And so to talk more about the importance of the CCA, I would love to hand it over to our climate champion who has been so committed to programs like the Clean Heat program and other critical environmental investments under his One Seattle Climate Justice agenda. Let's please give a warm welcome to Mayor Bruce Harrell.
Thank you, Jessin. Initiative 2117 is bad policy. That's my speech, right? In all seriousness, thank you all for being here. You are the fighters, the champions, the environmentalists that we need to fight bad policy like 2117. You'll hear from Greg and Nicole and Tammy. We're all on first name basis this morning as to why we are here together to celebrate our energy to fight 2117. I want to thank again Councilmember Tammy Morales for sponsoring the resolution and all of the environmental advocates here this morning. I see Kirsten Grove here from FAS. Thank you for joining us as well. Here's a quote I'd like to start off with. 25 years ago, people could be excused for not knowing much or doing much about climate change. But today we have no excuse. And that's from Desmond Tutu, the South African theologian and human rights activist. And that is so resoundingly true right now because the data speaks for itself. And not just the data, what we see and what we feel. So whether if you are motivated by what you see from a data standpoint or what you feel from a climate standpoint, we have to fight bad policy, and that's why we're here. As Jessen talked about, the Climate Commitment Act, we receive over $26 million in funding, but it's not the funding alone that makes us fight 2117. It's what we do with it, how it affects actual lives, and how we're trying to save our planet, our air, and our water. Justin mentioned the $3.2 million that helps small businesses and low and middle income families obtain heat pumps. What she didn't mention, I will piggyback, is the programs such as the free Orca cards to Seattle youth. Nearly 5 million youth rides in Seattle in 2023 alone. This is really good policy work that, again, our departments are doing, and I'm very proud of that work. We invested nearly $1 million into electrical vehicle charging to support an electric city fleet. We have to walk our talk with respect to the fleet, and the city recently celebrated a milestone of placing the 500th electric vehicle into service. We're looking at how we have funded road safety and modernization improvements to the Aurora Avenue North Corridor, and we are giving $200 off electricity bills to low and middle income households, alleviating the cost of heating and cooling homes. And so these funds that we are receiving go right to the people who need it the most. The other aspect of this, in terms of Seattle, specifically to Seattle, is we are trying to show this country what you can do to convert to a green economy through good, green, local jobs. And that's why Nicole's words are so important, that we believe in our labor partners and believe in finding pathways to success in fighting global warming. And so our construction workers, our contractors, our engineers, our customer service specialists, and those who will actually do a lot of the work we're trying to invest in become increasingly important, and we look at them as partners. The Climate Commitment Act has helped fund, again, climate readiness work right here in Seattle. And at the same time as capping and reducing pollution statewide becomes increasingly clear in the work that we need to do. The funding's at risk. That's why I started by saying 2117 is just bad policy. We transmitted the resolution to the City Council, and we asked them to join us in imposing this initiative, and I'm very proud of the work that the City Council and Councilmember Morales' leadership and others did this work. And so we think that as people are considering how they are voting, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say there are several things on the ballot this year, of course. But among them is our opposition to 2117. And as we create One Seattle, we talk about this work that we're doing collectively. This is us unifying at our best, because we are fighting for people perhaps that may look differently than people around us. We're fighting for people at different socioeconomic levels, and we're fighting for people to do the same thing, to save our planet, to save our air, to save our water. This is a unifying element at us at our best. And so I want to close by thanking Director Farrell for her strong leadership in OSC. We're not afraid to fight for people and fight for our planet, and that's what we're doing. And the next fighter, and by the way, they're doing the budget right now, so she's a lover, not a fighter. They're doing some really important work during the budget, and I can't thank Councilmember Morales and others for doing this important work. Councilmember Morales, please share some words with us.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here, and thank you to the Green New Deal Oversight Board. I do want to thank Mayor Harrell and Director Farrell for your partnership in creating this resolution and really helping us get it across the finish line. And I do want to take a moment to reflect on where we are in 2024 as it relates to the climate crisis. Last year, 2023, was the hottest year on record for our planet, and we're on track to continue this trend. Earlier this year, we received news of a preliminary report from some international scientists who identified that our world's forests and plants and soils are no longer absorbing carbon. Think about that. They're no longer absorbing carbon. This may be a temporary situation, hopefully it is, but it's really scary to think that the things that we rely on to help with carbon sequestration are not able to do that anymore. And just this week, we saw devastation in Spain, wrought by a couple years of drought followed by a flood. And, the devastation that wrought is really scary and heartbreaking. And it's happening more and more frequently across the globe. We know that this climate crisis is caused in large part by the use of fossil fuels. It's making our temperatures deadlier. It's making food resources less reliable. And it's causing record threats to health and safety of people across the world, including here in the Pacific Northwest. In District 2, where I live and represent, we know this very well. The city's Race and Social Equity Index identified our neighborhoods as tree deserts and heat islands. And I can tell you that, we know that these neighborhoods are majority people of color, immigrants, refugees, low-income families. And every summer now, we've been experiencing extreme heat, and we seem to have a regular smoke season here in Washington State. I hear stories every year from families who are suffering during these events, people who have to rush their kids to the hospital because their asthma's been triggered, families who have to shut their apartment windows during smoke events because their kitchen countertops are covered with soot. And these are very often families who don't have air conditioning and maybe can't afford a heat pump or can't afford even a fan to cool off the insides of their home. So this is really scary, and it's really important that we do everything we can to make sure that we're supporting families who can maintain their health and their comfort in the face of these onslaughts that we're getting every summer now. So despite decades of professionals raising the alarm about our emissions, it makes it even that more appalling that people are trying to repeal our Climate Commitment Act. This is not the time to go backward. This is the time to double down on our investments and in our efforts to make sure that our children and our children's children are able to have healthy and sustainable lives 7 generations from now. As a mother, as a trained community and regional planner, as the chair of our land use committee, I know that taking action on the climate crisis is front and center for many of our communities and really needs to be front and center across the state. We have to preserve the beauty of the Pacific Northwest. We have to preserve the health and safety of our neighbors. And voters can choose a healthier, a more sustainable, a greener Seattle, and a more beautiful Seattle by voting no on Initiative 2117. I want to thank you all again for being here and really appreciate everybody's commitment to finding climate solutions and really your commitment to letting the rest of the state know how important it is to make sure we're protecting our neighbors. I would like to introduce next Greg Smalls, who is the Executive Director of Climate Solutions. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Good to see you all. My name is Greg Small. I'm the Executive Director of Climate Solutions, and we are a nonprofit organization that's been working on climate change and clean energy solutions for more than 25 years. I want to thank Mayor Harrell, thank you, and the Seattle City Council for this resolution. Today, the City of Seattle is joining what I think is the largest and most diverse coalition that has ever come together in the history of this state on any issue. It is stunning how big this coalition is. There's now more than 575 organizations and tribal nations that are part of this effort to get us to no on 2117. This is 20 tribal nations. This is more than 200 doctors and nurses. It's more than 35 labor unions. We'll hear more from a labor leader in a moment. It includes the big titans of industry like Microsoft and Amazon and hundreds of other small businesses. 50 breweries are on board, which is very exciting. It includes farmers, it includes firefighters, and it also includes more than a dozen other local governments. So Seattle is obviously making this commitment today, but I think last week or earlier this week, Spokane did it. And again, about a dozen or more other local governments have already done so, right? The biggest coalition on any issue in the history of this state. So why? Why is this the issue that we've all come together on? And I think it's pretty straightforward. I think people are coming together to say yes on climate action, Yes on maintaining the state's leadership on climate action. Yes to investing in creating great jobs here in Seattle, but all around the state. Because we heard a little bit about the investments happening here in Seattle, but there's press events happening all over the state that are saying very similar things about heat pumps and electric vehicles and solar and things that are making our communities better, right? So people are saying yes to investments in our communities. And they're particularly saying yes to investing in the communities that are most hard hit by the impacts of climate change. Biggest coalition in the history of our state, and this is what we're saying yes to. And to get to yes, I'm proud to stand with all of you here today to urge everyone to vote no on Initiative 2117. And thank you all for being here. And I'm going to now hand it over to Nicole Grant, who's the political director for IBEW 46. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Greg, and to everybody at Climate Solutions for all your leadership. And thanks to Mayor Harrell and Councilmember Morales and all of the city council members, Seattle is now a no on 2117. And of course Seattle's a no on 2117 because this is the city that had the first public utility, Seattle City Light, to go carbon neutral in the country. Seattle always leads on climate. And as a leader in the labor movement, I love Seattle for that, because pushing back against climate change builds the best union jobs for our community. Right now, my union is working with Rainier Beach High School to make sure that young people that are in high school today are going to be the people that install a vast infrastructure in our city and throughout our state so that we can be truly carbon neutral and create so many incredible careers doing that. We're a no on 2117. It's a job killer. And when I say job killer, I mean that 2117 will eliminate over 50,000 jobs in the state of Washington. And as excited as we are about all that we've accomplished on climate change so far, we have so much more we want to do, and so much of it is funded by the Climate Commitment Act. We want to have electrical ferries. We want to have electric vehicle infrastructure that makes it so that it's accessible to everybody. With 2117, we're not going to be able to do that. It will be crushing to our Washington State ferries right there in downtown Seattle. Seattle voters everywhere have the chance to join their city in saying no on 2117. And I watched my 18-year-old vote for the first time this week against 2117. I want to see every 18-year-old in Seattle have that future, have that clean air, and have those incredible careers transitioning off of fossil fuel. Thanks.
Thank you, Nicole. We'll take some questions, but if there's one takeaway you have from these speakers, that is, don't underestimate the brewery base. Got them on board, so I like that one, great. Are there any questions before we sign and give away some pins on what we talked about? We'll entertain a few, and if not, we're going to sit down and sign some legislation. Yes, sir. Go ahead, Josh.
Can you talk about what the city is currently doing to prepare for the eventuality that this does pass?
Well, I'm going to, he's asking the city, but I'll also talk to some of my leaders standing with me. It's just my personal style. I claim victory in everything that I see. I just do. I think that we've done a marvelous job in articulating the need to defeat it. And I could say that about some other things that are on the ballot. I think it's not going to pass. So if it passes, we do what we'll always do. We'll get this community together. We'll get our department heads. I'll meet with my executive team, and we'll formulate policy and talk to our legislator in our legislative agenda about what we do together. But we are not putting a lot of energy into that right now. we are putting our energy into defeating it. That's the victory we all claim. Are you guys with me on this? So we claim victory, and that's just where I live my life. I claim victory in what I see now. Talk to me next week and ask me that question, and I'd be more than happy to entertain another answer. Would anyone else like to say anything? You don't have to. It was a city question. Greg?
Yeah, I mean, we are going to win. So first of all, I think this is not. I'm claiming victory. Right?
There you
Yeah,
go.
vote, Greg.
There you go.
And we're going to win because this coalition that I talked about is so extraordinary. If for some reason that is not the case, the plan is bring together these 570 coalition members, and we're going to figure out Plan B. Like, that's what we'll do. It's not going to happen, but if it does, this coalition stands ready to continue to move forward with climate action.
What does signing of this resolution, if 2117, not to be negative, if 2117 does pass, what does signing this resolution do? It's just so people at home understand it more.
Yeah, I'll let someone else just to handle that. But what's with you guys today on this? What if it passes stuff? We're here to talk about it not passing. Would someone like to talk about the substance of 2117, what it does? I mean, we're focusing in on what the act did and what we're losing, the $26 million in funding for the city. But if someone else wants to say anything about why, I think we'd be sort of repeating our speaking points. But
I'm not trying to have you repeat it. Just if people are just like, well, if it does pass, what does signing this resolution mean? Is what I'm asking.
So the resolution is a statement of the impacts to the city if this passes, and that's an important piece of information because the city in this sense is delivering all of the projects that we've talked about, whether it's clean heat, free Orca passes for young people, upgrading our EV infrastructure. So this resolution memorializes all of the ways the Climate Commitment Act is furthering benefits around climate for the city, and it takes a no position on the initiative. So it's a kind of a moment in time, because obviously the initiative, election day comes and goes. So this is really about the impacts to the city should it pass, and it states a position of no by the council and the mayor.
And I'm sorry, I totally misunderstood the question. It occurs to me there, as I said earlier, there are several items on the ballot. And the fact of the matter is a lot of people still don't even understand what the Climate Commitment Act does. And so what they do, though, is they look at people like those standing with me, those in the audience right now, and they see we are standing together for something, and they are, in fact, looking at what we are supporting. So these resolutions are more than symbolic. They are a statement of people who are committed to fighting climate change. What we're saying is right. And so that's why these types of collective efforts become so important. A lot of people, and thank you for covering this, by the way, a lot of people see why we're standing here and why we're against 2117, and perhaps that's all they need to do to join us, just to check the certain box. And so, again, I want to thank all of you for your networks. In this room, we affect thousands and thousands of people. Each of us have our relationship capital in our circles that we hang in and in our blogs that we respond to, in our own social media means. And so this becomes our movement, if you will, to defeat bad policy inherent in 2117. So I may get another question about if we aren't successful, so I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to sign some legislation, and thank you again for being here. This is my good side. All right. Thank you very much for being